So this is an example, a very simple example of Progressive Web App. So the structure, you're able to find it from GitHub, so you can just download it from GitHub, run npm install, it will install the stuff. Unfortunately, it's still on Grunt. I'm working on removing Grunt and moving it to Dud. But it simulates a very basic progressive web app. So the structure of this web app is inside this demo folder. We've got the index.html, which will be obviously our entry point for the website. Does this show okay, or it's a bit too big now? Okay, so we've got the index.html. This is going to be exactly like it would be on a normal website. So there's nothing different than what you would do in a normal website. In this case, I'm using, for my JavaScript templates, I'm using MaltaJS, but it would be the same as if you would be using handlebars or whatever you'd be using, or Angular. So this is exactly the same. Over here, we've got the reference to the manifest, which we'll come to shortly. We have our scripts down here. And our scripts are made up of these 3 files over here. Again, in here, this is the main. This is purposely commented out. We'll go through it slowly. But main file, apply the bindings, page.js handles these bindings and the view models, and arrivals handles, again, some more view models. And connects to what is our fake API, which is what we find over here, data.json. Okay, so if we would load the page now, so to run the application, I'm using Express.js, so I'm just running it locally. It will be available as localhost as normal. Okay, so if I'm going to be running it as it is at the moment with an internet connection, we've got this over here. Just give me 1 second. So we're loading the content from the API. In this case, it's registering the service worker, and we've got everything ready. So this is where we want to arrive. Now I will remove the service worker, which you can find inside Chrome, inside DevTools, and you can unregister it. So this is at the end of that cycle. This is the unregister. So the service worker will always be available. If I close the browser, if I reopen the browser, it will always be available for this URL. You will have to unregister it to have it removed, or it will be removed by the browser itself. There is also JavaScript commands to remove it if you would ever need it. However, that is unreliable, obviously. So I remove the service worker. Now in our code over here, inside the main.js, wherever we're registering the service worker, I have removed it for now. So we should be able to load this page, localhost 3000, without any service worker. Okay. Okay, perfect. So we have loaded. This is what would be our action. So we've got the very basic frame of the app. It will be available, including CSS, which in this case includes the colors, and some basic static files. And that is what we find inside the index.html. What is in the main.html for the bindings, page.js, and the arrivals.js. Now, what we need to do if we want to enable service workers, first of all, we'll need to register the service worker. One more thing, just I'll put this over here. Arrivals.load data, because this is why it should fit simply. So this is why it was empty, because there was not load data, but that works fine. So what we want to do, the first step would be to add the manifest.json. So the manifest.json, as I mentioned, it is a very simple JSON file. It includes a number of properties that describe the project. It includes references to icons, which are images, which will be used when we're going to load the application from the home screen. In this case, we're making it display standalone. Amongst standalone, there is also full screen, which will include the top bar on an Android device, the start URL, and one trick which we're using lately for analytic purposes is in the start URL, we're also including, for example, source as a query string, source equals PWA. And this would help us when we're checking traffic. We will know that the traffic from people who are opening it from the home screen compared to people who are opening it from the normal website. Okay, background color and theme color, which again affect how this is going to show once we load it from the home screen. Okay, and then we'll need to add a reference to this manifest. We'll use rel equals manifest and just a reference to the file. And by doing this, what will happen is that the browser, especially from a mobile device, it will know that there's a manifest.json and it will give you the option to add the home screen, and you're able to take advantage of an improved user experience. It's a bit tricky to show because obviously it will only work from a mobile, but you just have to trust me. So that's the manifest.json. As I said, the manifest.json is very simple and straightforward, so it's usually just a matter of copy-paste and updating your files. The more interesting part is the service worker. So the service worker is this file over here, sw.js. Now the service worker itself, this is its definition. It is not being registered through here. So this is the actual file which is always available. And this file over here, we've got the event listener. This is a simple version without using SW3 cache. I recommend if you're going for a production environment to use SW3 cache because it does a very good job at managing your cache resources. Whilst over here, what I'm doing, I'm using a static name, and what I do, I update it, for example, as part of the gulp or grunt in this case, as part of the grunt process. If it comes from V1 to V2, it knows there's a new version of the files. So over here, we've got the install process. This will run the first time you come onto the page. It will wait, this is a promise obviously, it will wait until we get the cache. It will open the cache name, which we're saying is a static name. And then what it will do, it will add all these files to the cache. So over here, we're caching our static assets. We've got CSS, we've got the JavaScript, a font, and an offline.html, which is something which we're going to show once the application is not available or connected to the internet. Skip waiting is used so that it will not wait for the service worker. If there's a previous service worker on this page, it will not wait for it. It will just take over. So this would be a case when the service worker has been updated. I have already been on this website. What will it do? This guy will overwrite the previous version. If you do not have skip waiting, then this is up to the discretion of the browser. So over here, we're doing all this stuff on the install phase of the service worker, and we're caching all the static assets. The next step is when we come to retrieve the static assets. And this is another event listener called fetch. I'll just push this a bit higher. So this is called fetch, and the fetch event listener is going to be triggered whenever there is a network fetch. So whenever there's a request for a resource on the network. And it will always go through here. And this is the reason why HTTPS is so important when we're talking about Progressibe Web Apps, because a man-in-the-middle attack, in this case, and is able to override or get control of your fetch, then he's able to serve content from his own domain or from or manipulate the content himself. So what we're doing in the fetch, we're going to respond. This is promise again. So we're going to check our cache. If our cache includes event.request, and event.request is going to be the URL of the static asset which is being requested. So for example, in the case up here, if there's a request for this file, if it matches, then it will retrieve it from the cache. And it will just return it from the cache. If not, it will perform the fetch as normal. So this is obviously required because if something is not being cached, if we remove this, only cache it will work for. Whereas if we keep it like this, it will check this from the cache, retrieve it from the cache, if not, retrieve it from the network. And this is the service worker itself. There's also the background sync and the push event listeners, which require a bit more time to explain. But the push, again, it will be handled in here as an event listener, and here we'll be responsible of what to do when a push comes through. So basically show this little window that comes down. Okay, so that's the service worker.js. Now what we need to do, we need to check if our browser supports service workers, and if it does, we will install it or register it. So, and that is this chunk over here. So, if our browser supports service workers, register this service worker.js. Once it's registered, show a console.log message, otherwise, sorry, you don't support service worker.js. What we also added over here are two event listeners to check whether the user is online and offline. And the reason for doing this is because this would trigger at the beginning of the page load. So it's going to check, is the service worker, yes, it is stuff from the cache. But if it suddenly goes offline whilst using the application, we will not know. So we want to include it as well. What I will do, just to demonstrate what we're using it for now we just comment it. We're going to load the data as usual. And finally, that is also use. So what we should do now is we should load our page. I covered the service worker, I covered its initialization. So on page refresh, on the first time, it's going to show from the console.log that the service worker has been registered. And inside Chrome, under application, you get the service workers, and it will show you all the service workers which are available for this page. And they are used, if you say checking, they are used quite extensively, especially from Google's websites. For example, even at the offline tab, it's running through a service worker. So we'll have this loaded over here. If we check the network, one of these. So at the moment, everything was retrieved from localhost, from the network as normal. If I would refresh the page, we will notice that some of them are retrieved from the service worker. This means that the cache of the service worker has noticed that there's a request for this file, and it has given it to us from the cache, so it's not being retrieved from the network. Obviously, the load times are going to be much faster because they're straight out of the cache. And this is, again, one of the easy wins from Progressive Web Apps and using service workers, that it is very easy or quite easy to get significant performance improvements with little effort. And over here, we're loading the data as usual. Now, what happens is if we go offline, if we go offline, nothing is going to happen at the moment. But if we load the page, we've got our action model still loaded. So this still loads even when there's no internet connection. What we want to do, we want to take it a step further. So what we want to do, we have included listeners to check whether the user is online or not. And then over here we've got to check if it is online, load the data, otherwise show an offline warning. So we're retrieving the content, we're still connected to the internet. If we force offline, I'm not sure how well it shows, but what we did, we grayed out the content.